Hello and welcome to this video on how to create and utilize a damp box and drying box dual purpose for pottery. So, challenge I have is that I do pottery at home as well as at a studio. The at-home version of my studio has a wheel and a slab table and a separate table for glazing and a microwave kiln. I use a microwave kiln for all my smaller pieces. So with that, I'm basically self-contained, right? I'm able to do all my own things. However, one of the issues being is that it's in the basement. Now, that's great because it stays really cool down there year round. It's basically the same temperature. It gets a little chilly in the winter and can be chilly during the summer, but I don't have to do any air conditioning or anything special down there. The challenge that it sort of puts up against me is that when I'm trying to dry pieces, I have either pieces drying too quickly because I don't have a lot of airflow in that area, but what I do have for airflow is kind of just from the vent system, because it does have air conditioning ports and stuff like that. So it can be blown on, so it can be dried out very quickly, or it stays wet too long. So what I wanted to do was create a sort of microclimate that I can control a little bit better. So I want to be able to slow dry pieces in a damp box or keep them completely damp for a while I work on them and through the stages of adding things to them. I've been doing these soap dispensers that are about this tall, little bottles. They could be bud vases, but I'm using them for soap dispensers and putting on a little pump top on them. And the latest iteration that I've had is that I dent in the side and then I add mushrooms and little gnomes and gnome houses and things like this. So the problem is I want my piece, after I've thrown it on the wheel, to dry slowly, and I'm at home, so I need to be able to figure out, other than just wrapping it in plastic and leaving it down there, how do I control the moisture level a little bit better? Haha, here we go. Years ago, I mean literally like 10 years ago, online, I was looking around for a box to be able to start seedlings, and I found one. Self-contained environment, and I wanted to be able to use it in a way that would enable me to put it together here, control the amount of air in and out of it, as well as stimulate the plants with a fan. You'll see there's another video up with this. So I purchased this years and years ago. It has 3 different parts to it. It's got the top lid, which has vents. They spin so you can open and close the vents. It has a separate middle section to increase the height of the growing space in case you have taller pots or your plants get taller. If you're doing tomato plants, you want them to get a little bit stronger before they go out. This makes it so you can start seeds early and not have them just sitting out in your house, but in a more controlled environment. And then it has the tray, very simple tray, no holes in it, so it holds water and it can sit on any surface, not have to worry because it's plastic, you don't have any moisture going down and through as long as you're careful. So we've got these 3 elements. Now, I've used them significantly for starting plants. However, the other day I was bemoaning my fact of pottery not being able to control my moisture levels when I came down to a pot that I'd thrown the day before had forgotten to cover it, and it was too dry for me to really work with, so I fired it as was in my microwave kiln. Aha, I thought, this has been sitting out in the garage because I didn't do any startings for about a year, no seedlings or anything, or early starts, and I thought this will be the perfect thing to use to be able to control my pottery. One of the other issues that I've been having with firing in the microwave kiln is that the temperature comes up very, very fast. It gets very hot in there, and basically it's a cone 010 bisque fire for the pottery pieces. But that temperature comes up very quickly, and I use earthenware, so I use a low fire earthenware, and I also use mid-fire clay that just comes to a bisque level, and then I have glazes that are low fire glazes that I use on that. However, that first firing is like a crapshoot, whether or not my pieces are going to explode or not. Because drying in the basement, I have found that the moisture level is higher in the basement because it's got a cement floor, it's got partial cement walls, while the back wall into the hill is completely cement, and then it's a walkout to outside. So I have zero control over how much moisture and how much humidity is in that air. So not only am I having problems keeping my pieces wet enough to work with in sort of a leather hard stage for multiple days, they're either too wet, they're too dry, you know, I'm having to wet them, all of these other things. But I'm also having problems that my pieces are not getting dry enough for me to actually feel secure when firing. When I use the microwave kiln, I put it in, I have a 1,000-watt microwave, and I put the kiln in. I have a double stack kiln, microwave kiln, and I put it in and I put it on for 10 seconds. And then for another 10 seconds, 10 seconds later. And then 15 or 20 seconds in between, I put it on for 15 seconds. And I do this multiple times while I'm glazing pieces or I'm throwing something. But it's constantly doing this interruption because I really can't tell in the base of pieces and in behind anything that I've added on, especially with these new pots, I can't tell whether or not the piece is really dry enough and I'm not doing a real slow, normal firing, a bisque fire, which takes 24 hours because it allows the piece to warm up very slowly for all the moisture to escape gently and gradually to truly dry it out the rest of the way and not explode. So my pieces are nice and thin, my pieces are nice and light. I do a lot of sculptural little pieces, miniatures, and they dry out and I leave them for a week to dry them out. Sometimes I don't want to have to leave them for a week, or I need the piece to truly be fully dry through and through, especially if I'm taking a pot and I'm adding some sculptural pieces to the side of the pot. So I do a dent in and then I add mushrooms and other little things to it. But those add-ons are where the failure is coming in significantly and frequently now. And I'm losing these pots that are actually really cute that I spend quite a bit of time on that I really enjoy, and then part of it will explode where it's holding onto moisture and it's just not able to. Even though I'm perforating and putting holes in, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do, I'm still losing pots. So my conclusion is they're not drying out enough for me to confidently fire my pieces in the kiln for the first fire. Now, this escalated when second fire, I had it in there, we had a bunch of rain, I didn't even think about it. I had already bisque fired a piece, I glazed it, I put it back in the kiln, and I did a quicker warm-up series for it, and the whole piece completely obliterated. It completely exploded and turned into little teeny pieces, which is such a bummer because it was a really cool little piece. And I was so excited because I was able to glaze it and it had made it through the first firing and the whole deal, and then boom, kaboom. And I rushed the firing, I know I did, but it was also because it was so humid outside that it was humid in the basement as well. So how do I control this? What am I gonna do? Well, moving air over an object will actually remove moisture out of it, sort of. It's kind of that idea. I'm not gonna get into the technical aspects of blah, 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 blah. I'm not gonna do that. But I'm gonna tell you that if you put a fan on something, everybody will tell you this, put a fan, it's gonna dry it out, right? You know how this works. So I thought of this little guy. What I did was I modified just the standard box, and I did this for the plants, with a computer fan. I cut a hole in the side, a little slot in the bottom for the cord to come out, and it's a USB computer fan. So I plug this into a USB port, and I have the converter plug, obviously, that just goes on a wall, right? Well, then the issue is, just like with plants, how do you control, you plug it and you leave it on for 3 days. That's fine, you can do that. But you do have an option for a little bit more control. They have now these fabulous little things called programmable outlets. Bum, bum, bum. Oh my God, they're brilliant. I just absolutely love them. I use them throughout our house. They're on a schedule. They come with their own app, or I use it through our Google Home. And basically it turns on and off lights, turns on and off the outlet. There you go. You can turn it on using your phone and the app and leave it on for an hour, and then it'll turn off. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a tray in the base that is a screen. So I'll put a screen in the base. I have one that fits almost perfectly, oddly enough. That'll keep the piece off the bottom so that there'll be air circulating all the way around it. And what I can do is then I'll place it on there. I have some kiln furniture, which means that like little blocks that have spikes on them and things that you can also elevate pieces so that they do get heat all the way around. But then what I can do is I can open the vents on here and turn the fan on. Now, for the opposite, I can use it dual purpose. If I want my pieces to stay wet longer so I can work with them longer, don't use the fan. I'll not turn on the fan. It's only a small hole on the side, and I'll close all the vents, the two on the top, and then the two on the sides, and I'll close them all down so that it keeps all the moisture in there. I'll spray the bottom of the pan, leave it on the grate that's going to be in there so that the bottom doesn't get wet. I don't want it to sit in water. It'll just disintegrate. Ta-da! And that will be my damp box. So now I can control the amount of moisture in there. I can just spray the piece if I want to, but even better is to spray the bottom, or I can wet a sponge, put it in on the grate next to my piece. That'll keep the moisture in there. Now, the reason that I love the fact that I've got the two pieces is because I can either, if I have a taller piece, I don't have to lay it down. I can lay it down if I want, but if it's a real soft piece, I'm not gonna wanna lay it down to keep it damp. So, if I have a smaller piece, if I have a taller piece, these fit together so that I can use it with just the lower lid. So for smaller pieces and for anything that I'm throwing, I usually throw, the maximum I'm gonna throw is to about 6 inches tall because it'll shrink down to the point where I can fit it in my microwave kiln. And so, since I know the shrinkage rates and everything, and I do my shrinkage calculator, which was really confusing until I found one online and went tinky-tinky and it magically did it for me. It's called math. Amazing. Let the computer do it for you. Gotta love it. So you can always do the math yourself. It's actually not very hard. You just, it's a percentage of shrinkage if you just know that for your clay or the averages. So when I put it in there, I can dry it out or I can keep it wet. So my damp box / drying box is one box. And I think it cost me $10 online. And I think I spent $2.50 for the two. I have a backup. When this one fails, I got the other one in the closet from 2 houses ago or 1 house ago. That moved with me and I went, what is this? Don't throw that away. All right. So I hope this helped, and I hope this is an idea and an inspiration. If you have some other ideas, I'd love to hear from you. So throw me a comment and like, subscribe, share, do all the things that you're supposed to do. Tell your friends about it. And maybe this can help you when you're throwing pieces at home, or even if you're at a studio, get a personal one, put it in at the studio where you throw your pottery and where you take classes. And that way you know which pieces are yours and see if they're okay with you putting that on a shelf as a contained unit in their damp box, or if they don't have room in the damp box, you can always have your own damp box and put it up on top of the shelves like we have at Junk Pot Studio. All right. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and choose to make it a good one. Bye.